Hello there, my podcast listener. Welcome to another episode of Talk Music Talk with Boice. I am Boice, and this is my podcast you are listening to. I am your podcasting host. If this happens to be your first time checking it out, Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, established and emerging singers, singer-songwriters, music therapists, music journalists, and on this new episode, I had the pleasure of speaking to jazz artist Sophie Dunér, singer, composer from Sweden, also a visual artist. Last year, she released an incredible album called The City of Dizzy. We recorded this conversation when she was in the States for several performances. A lot of great things we talked about in this interview. We talk about how when she was younger, why she wanted to sing jazz instead of pop music. We talk about her attending Berklee College of Music, her experience there, learning jazz improv. Also, dealing with culture shock of being in the States for school. We talk about her songwriting process. We get into her thoughts on studio recording versus live performing, the difference between her music and her visual art, and also the early influence of Elvis Presley. After the conversation, you will hear two songs from The City of Dizzy, Purple Bossa and The Express Train, two of my favorite songs from the album. Both songs featured cellist Jeremy Harman on it. And before we get to the conversation, did you know that Talk Music Talk is now streaming on Spotify? That's right. Just search for Talk Music Talk, subscribe, and you can catch every episode when it is released. Plus, you can stream the back catalog. That is right. That is correct. Talk Music Talk on Spotify right now as I speak. But here it is, without further ado, my conversation with Sophie Dunér. Enjoy. With your latest album, you're working with the cellist Jeremy Harman, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your previous album, you had a quartet?
A string quartet.
String quartet.
Yes.
What are there different demands between demands and advantages of working with just a cellist, one person, and working with a string quartet?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that this cellist is unusual because he's using other additional elements to his sound. He has a machine that can record loops and stuff, and he's got additional sounds. He's like a little orchestra in himself. He can do a lot of different things, and he's also very versatile. He plays many styles. He can play jazz, he can play contemporary music, classical, metal. So that also changes the sound. It's just not a regular cellist. You can enhance these tunes and also improvise, and that gives it a different situation. Of course, it's also a more intimate sound than playing with a string quartet. It's different in many ways, but still it has that aggressive string sound that I really enjoy together with my voice.
Okay. How's it different?
What do you mean?
How's it different, like working with a quartet and the sound you get from that as opposed to this one person, even though he's quite unique in what he does as a cellist?
Right. Well, it's more of a duo situation. Of course, it changes the context of my of my expression as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're with four people, it's different than when you're with one. Duo is different than quartet. Simple as that. Yeah.
Did he have a sound that you had been looking for, or you didn't know that's what you needed until you heard it?
This collaboration sprung out of a situation where I was planning to use a string quartet for a festival, and it wasn't possible. So I thought, well, I'll work with a cellist.
Yeah,
and he was also in that area, so it kind of just was a spontaneous idea. It was nothing that I had really planned.
Okay.
So it was due to some circumstances, and it turned out really great.
So did you co-write the songs with them, or you had the songs written in advance?
I took songs from the string quartet repertoire, and then I took some new songs.
Okay.
So it was all my stuff, and I adapted it to, the situation with the cellist, which is also, of course, totally. I mean, it's different than that aspect because you don't have a harmonic instrument, but you can produce the same effects with, you can play two notes sometimes, and you can use the loops and percussive effects. There's possibilities, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Was the adaptation different in that he can do all these different sounds beyond like a traditional cellist? Did that take part into your production or what you were looking for?
It was new to me. Mm-hmm. I hadn't worked that way before.
Yeah.
Also, he was using both electric and acoustic cello, and it was a new situation. But it's always nice to be challenged. Mm-hmm. So it was very exciting.
Yeah.
And again, I enjoy very much the raw sound of the strings. Not so much the romantic sound, but more the raw sound.
Did you know? Okay. Mm-hmm. And but what point did you decide you wanted to do a whole album with him?
After we gave a concert at the Harman Music Festival.
Mm-hmm. And you knew then,
yeah.
Okay, I have to do an album with him. Okay. So that's exciting to know, immediately.
Yeah, no, I really felt that the concert was very successful and the response was great afterwards. About 20 people came up to me and said that they really liked it, and I thought that was a good sign.
Yeah.
So I thought we have to record this.
Yeah. And your songwriting, what do you write on? How do you write songs?
I write on the piano, and sometimes I can use the computer, or I can even just invent things in my head.
Yeah. And then from inventing in your head, is that when the computer takes place? Like getting the thoughts out of your head into the computer?
Well, it's sort of no. If I invent it in my head, I go to the piano with those ideas. Or I don't invent them in my head at all. I can just sit around on the piano. It could start really any of those three alternatives. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Okay.
Sometimes I just write down on the computer what I have come up with, just to transmit that to other people so they can read it. But it's the method varies.
Yeah. And was the piano your first instrument?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. I started playing classical piano when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And I continued for 7 years.
Was that a parental choice?
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I just remember that I had some difficulties learning how to read. And I preferred to invent my own melodies and imitate themes from the TV. And it took me, it was difficult to sight read.
Yeah. Could you play by ear?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time. But I did study with a teacher.
Okay. Was that frustrating?
He told me you shouldn't invent tunes here. You shouldn't imitate tunes by ear. You should learn how to read here. We play songs here. But I kept on doing the other thing anyway.
Well, that seems like a good skill to have, to be able to to do off the paper. So were you doing both? Like you study with this person and then doing your own stuff off on the side?
Yeah, I was, inventing a lot of music as a child as well. And also playing, trying to imitate themes and stuff.
Outside of learning the sight reading, did you like playing the music? Did you take to it pretty easily?
Yeah, definitely. I just switched from the piano to voice when I was 14.
Okay. And what made the switch? Why'd you switch?
I have no explanation for that either. I simply don't remember. I wanted to sing instead.
Okay.
But I continued to play, but I wanted to sing instead.
Were there singers you admired that influenced you?
Elvis Presley.
Okay.
It was my first influence.
Okay. And where would you have heard Elvis Presley first? Do you remember?
I guess.
Or first thing that influenced you, Bob?
Yeah, probably just, on TV and some movies and, they just, I think it was that movie, Honolulu. He was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It was a movie where he was an actor as well.
Yeah.
But I loved his dynamic sound. I think it was much because of the dynamics.
Okay. You mean like the range
No, just the way he would dynamically be very expressive outwards and inwards, with his voice. The way he would like very much, like a trumpet, almost like you do in jazz.
Yeah.
It would be outwards and inwards, not more than other people. I think that's why I got attracted to that type of, strong expression, outwards and inwards, very, very dynamic, very expressive. Okay. Very expressive, yeah. But this was when I was a kid.
Yeah. And you immediately responded to, I want to be a singer like Elvis. That was it?
No, I really don't remember any kind of thought why. It's just, but it wasn't like a huge insight. I just started to sing.
Okay. Well, you took lessons?
I took some pop lessons to begin with. And I got a little bit bored of that. And I attended jazz school. Okay.
So when did you attend jazz school? After high school? Or how does it work? You're from Sweden?
Yeah.
And what part?
From outside Gothenburg.
Okay.
And I took 3 years of this kind of, you go with a teacher and he has a 4-track and and you sing pop songs and you record them and that's it. It wasn't really like a school training, voice. But I felt I needed something else than that. I wanted to do something more profound, write, and sing different kinds of things than we were singing there. Okay. So then I got to know about different schools and I got to know about Berkeley. Okay. And then I attended jazz school.
Had you been developing listening to jazz outside of post Elvis? Were you listening to jazz music? Was that the influences?
Not really.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
No.
So why jazz? What did you know about jazz that you thought, this will push me?
I did not know anything about jazz before I went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
No.
So why did you think jazz would be the music that you would need to study?
Okay, can we take this again?
Yeah.
It sounds really... I must have listened some to it, but I don't remember why. I don't remember why I had a vague idea, but I can't really remember why I chose to go. I can't answer your question on that. It's really bizarre. I mean, I heard some Frank Sinatra. I heard some, lightly some jazz music, but I just felt that pop was not enough for me. I wanted to do something beyond that. Okay. It was too much entertainment. I wanted to do something that was more profound, and I ended up applying for jazz school instead.
So you at least knew that jazz would at least be a little more challenging or have a complexity to it that pop didn't. Okay. So when you get to school, is that your first time in America? Have you been there?
I had been visiting before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you didn't have culture shock, or did you when you...
I did.
Okay. What was your culture shock like?
My culture shock was that you had to be really forward and not shy. Go up with people immediately and say who you are and shake hands, and everybody was like that. Yeah. And that was kind of like, wow. The first half year was challenging that way because I wasn't that open, so I could do that. Okay, it took some time before you got into that, but after you got into it, things were easier. But in the beginning, it was kind of it was a culture shock. Yeah. Even though I had been visiting here before when I was younger, I had been making trips with my family. And
was that a you thing, or was that a Swedish culture
mixed,
thing?
I think. Mixed. Yeah, it's different over there. It's not... and I think in Europe in general, I think that's quite an American thing, that they're very, you go up and talk to someone, you say who you are, and it's very communicative that way. I think possibly you learn that in school as well. We don't have speech in class. We didn't when I was a kid. And people are more, it's a different culture. Yeah. So I think partly it was cultural. Okay. And partly also I was young. You know, you didn't really know how to just get up there and say hello, you know.
Because I interviewed somebody, I want to say from Korea, and they went to RISD, and they were saying the same thing. In the Korean culture, it's much more demure and shy, and they just couldn't believe in America that people just said their opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no holding back, and they said they had to learn that.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah.
Definitely different.
So how was the program for you? Learning jazz, a lot of this
it was
you're
wonderful.
To
I loved it. I met some other people there who came from Europe, and they had already gone to school, music school and jazz school, and taken, a lot of lessons beforehand. But for me, as I said, it was quite new to me. Yeah. And I really loved it. To be honest, it was very good for me. And I especially enjoyed the improvisation classes. Okay. I took 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then some other separate improv classes. That was definitely the best part of it. Yeah. So how jazz improv.
Okay. How do you learn jazz improv?
You can learn it in two ways. They told me you can either take instrumental improvisation classes, or you can study scat singing with a voice teacher. I took that too, but I preferred the instrumental approach. Okay. Because of the reason that you sort of can become more personal in your sound, I think, than if you copy a melody and then you interpreted it.
Okay, that's the difference.
You learn it,
okay.
And you learn riffs through listening to instruments, and as opposed to if you learn syllables, it's more limited.
Yeah.
Where they learn in scat, vocal scat. It's less, for me, it felt less complex. It was much more exciting to take the instrumental classes, because you dig into the harmonic side, and you listen a lot to different solos. And also, I wasn't too keen on using scat syllables. I wanted to invent my own, just, blow with whatever syllable,
And is that more that way is more your voice is an instrument?
Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
I preferred that approach. It was much more fun, more free, as opposed to having somebody scooby-doo-doo, It wasn't, I wasn't really attracted to that side of it. So, I preferred to keep it more neutral. Yeah. So I could shape my own syllables or my own sound, and it was a different way of doing it. Okay. That's just personally what I got out of it. And it was a lot of fun, and I have kept that part of it with me, the improv approach.
Were there any jazz artists that you discovered when you were in school that oh my God, I can't believe this person exists? They just blew your mind?
When I was in school?
Yeah, since this is new to you.
A lot of those things came after school. Because I think when you're learning something, all that fruit comes afterwards. It comes during 20 years afterwards. I had episodes where I enjoyed jazz in a different way. I had episodes where I had to leave it for a while because I felt I needed to... especially for my music, I felt I needed to hear the colors more. I didn't want it to be as free. Yeah. I wanted to balance that freedom. Free according to who? It's I didn't want them to change my music too much. Yeah. But then on the other hand, I realized, oh no, I really do need the freedom as well. But sometimes you need to go in and out of things to understand that what you need.
Yeah.
You know, to look at it objectively and
or
even lose it.
Yeah, yeah.
To come back to it.
Okay.
And say, oh yes, this is what I like. This is how I like it.
Yeah. Had you were writing your own stuff in school, or was that after school?
Yeah, I did. No, I did already there. I did write a lot of music in school as well. But it was very different than it is now.
Okay. What was it like then?
It was more contemporary jazz.
Okay. And how did you make the transition from the contemporary jazz? How did that happen?
Because it was like a sort of a emotional and stylistic choice. I guess I sort of wanted to design music for what my expression was, what my expression needed. And that's been taking a long time.
Yeah.
Because I wrote music for a while that wasn't even for my own key or for my own, you know, it was something. I was like, is this for me or who is it for? Is it maybe for an instrument, you know? But it's taken a long time before you can realize, okay, what is it that I need? Like the ingredients in a food recipe.
Okay.
I need angular music. I need change of time feels. I need hits. I need attacks. I need space. I need dissonance. At the same time, I need that combined with some romantic sections.
Yeah.
But you know, you divide. This is like you're making a soup.
Right? Till you get the right.
So I get the right
gumbo.
I get the right of everything, so I can express myself the way I want.
Okay.
But I didn't always do that because you fall into different styles, or this is hip, or this is not, or this is for me. I had no idea, but I did it. You know, I think it's important it's important to design it for yourself. I'm a composer. Okay, I compose for me. Now I compose for me. I wanted extreme. I wanted contrast. So I put all the things that I like in there. And then it's really simple. I'm not mishmashing anything. I'm not doing any crossover. I don't even like that word.
Yeah. It's just you. Like, it's an amalgamation of you, right?
Yeah. It's the same thing when you combine food, or you combine clothing, or you combine things in your own life. You know, you have to know where you sound the way you want to sound.
Yeah. And after you graduate from Berkeley, do you go back home, or you stay in the States?
No, I stayed in the States for a while. I did my practical training.
Okay.
And I was in New York for a year. And then I moved to Madrid, Spain.
Okay. Why'd you go to Madrid?
Why?
Yeah, what was in Madrid?
Oh, because of a man.
Okay. I've heard that story before.
And also, I really enjoy the Spanish culture.
Yeah.
And the music.
Okay. So how did that affect your music, or did it?
It certainly did. It certainly did. But I was already influenced by flamenco beforehand. I like it very much, the expression, and you know, I really enjoy world music.
Yeah.
And flamenco has, of course, been a very strong influence.
But being immersed in it, like, how's that different from, say, just listening to recordings prior to living there?
Yeah, it's very different. It's very different because once you're surrounded by something and you're inside something, it's different than watching it from long distance.
Yeah, far.
Yeah, you see many variations of it, you know, and you also learn what's supposed to be good and what's not, you know, as opposed to if you're a foreigner, you say, oh, he's good, you know.
And you don't know.
So you get to hear what they say, when you get to hear what they say about it, people from the country. So it's different.
Yeah.
Of course, you get a different insight into it, and you hear people talk in a different way about it than if you would sit isolated somewhere in another country and just hear what's, you know, what's supposed to be that. and it's not.
So in Madrid, you got music, you got a man. How far are you off?
Sorry?
How far are you off from your album, the first album?
Oh, my first album.
Was that My City?
The City of My... Well, I've been making... I made an album in Boston.
Okay.
A jazz album.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that was the first one.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was contemporary jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've been collaborating with, other musicians on their albums.
Mm-hmm.
I've been featured singer.
Yeah.
And then solo album, yeah. I did also recording for Simp Records with a jazz album here.
Yeah.
That was in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
That was a trio.
Okay.
The Rain in Spain. And that was together with Rory Stewart, Matt Penman, and Khalil Kwame Bell. It was jazz group. And after that, I did the string thing, City of My Dreams. And that was the City of My Soul and the City of Dizzy. So
Okay.
yeah.
And do you see those two albums more like of you as opposed to other albums, since you were in other people's albums and the other one was contemporary jazz? Like, is this a more pure expression of what you do?
I think the one I did right now is more what I do, because it has the string thing and it also has the jazz element.
Yeah.
And as I was talking before, well, these designing music for yourself, of course, there's been episodes when, for example, the string quartet was more of an art music project. And earlier on, I have more only been doing jazz. I also had a group in Madrid that had influences from cabaret. So, it has been various stages of music, and I've been writing a lot of different kinds of music, everything from Kurt influence to contemporary influences. I am very fond of a lot of contemporary music. I am also a great fan of Bartok and Stravinsky. I have a lot of different influences in my writing. So there has been all kinds of things during the road.
How did you decide which songs would go on to this album? Of the many that you've written, how do you know which ones work together and say this is an album?
Well, for this album, I had a couple of them were totally new, actually, like designed for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what was going to go on this album. I just felt that I needed to do something that was for me, the expression I wanted to make. You know, so I said, this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here. This represents who I am. And also controlling what's next to each other.
Yeah.
I prefer to look at it in shapes and energies. I need this now. I need some slow motion here.
Okay.
Like the Purple Bossa song that you said you liked. It's more very calm and very intimate. Then I have another one, the Express Train, that starts out more very, very jazzy and slow, and then it just breaks. I like radical contrasts.
Yeah. That's
sort of a thing that I enjoy a lot, which you can find on this album. So it's sort of a mood thing. Yeah.
And how did you decide which covers? It opens with a Monk song and ends with a Miles Davis song. How did you decide which covers that you would be including?
It wasn't like I decided I have to have covers on this album. Yeah. It's just I decided, well, I really, really like Weird Nightmare. I like to sing it. I like to sing it that way. Yeah. So it goes on there. And the Miles Davis tune, it's very angular. And I always wanted to sing that one. So I thought, why not? I'll put it on this album as well. Yeah. Because of the expression and also the way the voice moves. The angular
And it works with the other songs.
Yeah.
Okay. And I asked a jazz singer this before. When you're someone who improvises live, do you ever have like a remorse that the album is set in stone forever? You can reinvent it live over and over, but that version in the studio that comes out, that's it.
Yeah, that's true. Of course you do, I guess. Yeah, because there's always going to be sort of live is live.
Yeah.
You know, it's always freer. And a recording is always... yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Because I guess what I'm getting at is like a pop singer will sing it the same way 50 times, right? Or at least their goal is to sing it the same way. While as a jazz singer, you want to be in the moment and what happens in that moment.
Well, you're hoping that you will be in the moment on that recording.
Yes. Okay.
As good as you can. And that's hard to plan. You shouldn't even use your head.
Yeah.
You know? So I wish somebody would just slap me and you get all that adrenaline going, you know. But in a studio situation that you can't always be as, how do you say, primal, primitive, as you're in the concert when all the live situation is affecting your expression. Of course, you know, that's why I often think that live recordings are, I'm usually quite myself on live recordings as well as on CDs, but sometimes the live recordings, they catch a moment that is, can sometimes be even more true, of course.
Yeah. And then you have that connection with the audience.
Yeah, it's a different situation, totally different situation. So I always say that people who go in the studio and make a recording, you should always have a, I don't know, you can have an argument with someone so you get all hyped up or do something you know, that will affect your spontaneous expression. Otherwise it gets too planned.
Yeah. Do you like studio recording?
Yes and no, I guess. I don't like to think too much because usually the first take is the most spontaneous and after that you start thinking.
Yeah.
You start trying too hard. So it's difficult.
To be spontaneous. Yeah. And spontaneous in the best take.
Yeah. Because usually technically maybe the third is the best, but the expression is always the first fresh one.
Yes. I guess especially in jazz, that's sort of the...
For me, it's like that.
Yeah. And so maybe a live album is in your future.
Yeah.
There's a suggestion. So what do you have planned? I know you have shows coming up and promoting the album, and best place for people to hear your music, more would be what you're doing.
Yeah, you can also hear me with together with two of my songs, Hey Doctor and Weird Nightmare, together with a chamber orchestra on YouTube.
Okay.
That is a live, two live takes that I really like. So
we can see you live.
So yeah. These are two takes from a festival in Sweden. And then, of course, I also combine it with my art.
Yes. I was going to ask you about that.
Clips on YouTube from the new CD, The City of Dizzy.
How long have you been creating art?
Oh, ever since I was a child.
Yeah. Did you study art, or has it always been just
no,
like
I didn't.
self-expression?
I've just been drawing all my life. It's just kind of a part of my being. The art is not the same as the music, but it becomes sort of a story to me. And I invent a lot of Muppets, you know.
Okay. And when people look at your art, what do you think it says about you? Or people might see about you?
I think my art is more... it's kind of... I use... or I've heard people say it's satire, it's naive, it's expressive, it's bizarre. It has a playfulness. And the music... it's slightly different. It's a little bit more, a little bit more dissonant.
Yeah.
It's different. So I feel that they sort of do well for each other. The two art forms.
Okay.
Music is not as naive. But I think they go well together.
Okay.
They create different colors.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I asked my niece once what she thought about my music.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's fun, it's pretty, it's scary, and it sounds like it has a cult.
You're like, yes.
That's a nice expression.
Yes.
Kids understand your music best. That's what Stravinsky said.
Oh, really?
Kids and animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a best critique.
It has many aspects of it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your sites are, you have one for your music, one for your art, and they are, what are your websites?
Yeah. One for my music and one for my art.
Mm-hmm. And what are those?
SophieDunér.com and SophieDunérArt.com.
Oh, very easy to remember. Great. Well, I enjoyed this. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I like you and I don't. It's paradoxical, don't you think? What I love about you, it disturbs me and it thrills. I cease to understand the status quo between us now. All I can do is to sit back and quietly wonder why you lost me once and again, hurt me twice, forever stained. Still you linger like the color purple, skies no red, no blue. I think you ought to realize what you're made of after all. You rearranged the colors you presented at the ball. You ought to understand I am your kind in spite of all. You linger like the color purple. Still I love you all the more. I made a trip from hell to paradise last night. I took the express train trying not to sleep so tight. The wind was blowing straight into my face last night. I realized I was so much out of place last night. I took the train I took the train I made a trip inside my little time machine. I thought the grass was greener on the outside of the screen. The camera kept on rolling, think I lost track of time. I realized I was very much ahead and beyond. I took the train I took the train I took the train I took the train I took the train
You just heard two from Sophie Dunér featuring Jeremy Harman, The Express Train, and kicking it off, Purple Bossa. I am online, talkmusictalk.com, to stream every single episode and for more podcast information. I'm also on Instagram at This Is Boice, so please follow me there. And some call to actions for you if you enjoyed this episode with Sophie. Please share it on social media, email it to a friend, or leave that 5-star rating and or review, especially on iTunes if you happen to be listening there. This all helps to grow the Talk Music Talk audience. Also, Talk Music Talk has an app. It is free for iPhone and Android, wherever you like to get your apps, or you can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, as I mentioned earlier, Google Play, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, pretty much everywhere. Just search for Talk Music Talk. You can also find the show on SoundCloud, starting with episode 100 at soundcloud.com/This Is Boice. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.